This presentation is for educational purposes only, and the opinions expressed are those of the presenter. All trades presented are not traded in a live account and should be considered hypothetical. Hello everybody and welcome to Hawkeye FX with your host Marcus Toombs on the 23rd of October 2017, and this is my weekly review. So if you remember my review from last week, and this is on this vertical line here, we were looking for strength from the Aussie dollar here, the New Zealand dollar here, and the pound as these all turned up in the charts. We had said to look out for the pound turning back down again as this has come from an overbought territory, and we expect it to have a shoulder pattern, and also the New Zealand as this was coming from overbought territory to come up and turn down. Now both of these did turn down, and this was the trade of the week here on the New Zealand turning down for weakness, but you can see here the pound has since turned back up and coming back into strength. Against this, we were looking for the US dollar to continue to weaken here, going down in the charts, for the yen to continue down for weakness, the euro here to turn down for weakness, and for the Canadian here, which was just turning down for weakness. Now what transpired was the US dollar turned quite soon in the week to come back into strength. Now as this is coming from an overbought territory here, we will look to see this now and expect it to turn back down again and continue in the weakness cycle. Now with the euro, we were saying that whilst this was expected to weaken through the week, we were looking for this to turn back up again, which it did, and we can now expect some euro strength to come in. And that's the same with the Japanese yen as it's coming from oversold territory here. We expect this to turn down and then turn back up and come into some strength, and this may well still happen this week. Now before we look at the charts, what I want to show you from this chart is that this was a very difficult week to trade because the lines were turning, which gives choppy trading conditions and no strong trend runs. And also you can see that's signified by the lines being horizontal. So if you look at the Canadian, it did turn down, it turned back up, down, now it's turned back down again. And this sort of horizontalness gives very tricky trading conditions. The pound here turned back down, now turning back up, and that same thing applies. The US dollar in turning back up here, this would have gone through maybe a head and shoulder patterns on the charts, and you can see that's tricky trading conditions. Same here with the New Zealand turning during the week, the euro turning during the week here, and the yen turning to the beginning of the week here and maybe coming into better trading conditions at the end of the week. So looking here at the Aussie, which we expected to strengthen through the week, you can see it did make progress against the pound here and against the yen here, but not significant gains through the week against the other currencies until you can see here the New Zealand actually weakened and the Aussie made significant gains. The pound we expected to strengthen through the week if it continued to turn up, but as we know it turned down and then turned back up again, and this gave very tricky trading conditions through most of last week. However, what you can see now is that the pound has turned and is coming into strength against all of our 6 currency pairs, and we can expect this strength to continue through this week. The main driver, as we'll come to shortly, is the possibility of an interest rate rise on the 2nd of November. Now, if we look at the currencies we expected to weaken through the week, and we start with the US dollar, you can see the US dollar was very horizontal and not made much progress through the first half of the week. And then it did weaken before turning, and then you can see here coming into strength the latter part of last week and into this week, and it's currently quite strong. And with the yen, you can see here as the yen turned and weakened, it was very horizontal for the first part of the week and weakened more towards the end of the week, although not against the Canadian dollar here and the New Zealand dollar here, which were both weaker. Now with the euro, we expected this to weaken, and it was a very similar story with very tricky trading conditions at the beginning half of the week until it did then turn back up again, as we saw in the charts. And then you can see here it's just come into some strength in the latter part of last week as it turned up in the fat man. And then finally the Canadian dollar, which we expected to weaken, you can see here it did weaken for the first part of the week and then transitioned into some strength before then turning back down again in the latter part of the week, as you can see here, and weakening against all of the currency pairs. And then, sorry, not to forget the New Zealand dollar, which offered the best trading of the week. You can see here a nice strong run at the end of the week as this turned down, and you can see here weakened against all of the currency pairs, and this was providing the best trading of the week. Okay, after a difficult week last week, let's see what we can expect from this coming week. And we'll start off looking at the news. Now, on Monday and Tuesday, there's no major news out, and this could be very quiet trading conditions. Things get much more busy on Wednesday when we have CPI out of Australia, GDP from the pound, and then the big one, Canadian monetary policy report and interest rate decision, where they are expected to keep the rates on hold. And then on Thursday, the big one is the euro interest rate decision here. And although we are expecting the rates to be kept on hold, we will be looking for, and this is from the press conference afterwards at 1:30, direction for the euro to see if there's any indication for the tightening of the monetary policy. And then finally, to close the week, we have the preliminary reading of GDP for the US dollar, and this is expected to be a lot lower than the previous quarter here, and this may well weaken the US dollar. So looking at the charts here, we can expect this pound now to turn up and come up strongly, and this will be driven by any talk of the interest rate rise on the 2nd of November. We have to be very careful here with any talk about Brexit negotiations, which are buffering the pound. I'll also look for US dollar strength to continue here, but I will be looking for this to turn back down in the charts here on a shoulder pattern and then bring some weakness in the US dollar. And then finally, we'll be looking for this euro to also continue to turn up and come into strength. So strength from the pound, the US dollar and the euro, although the US dollar may then weaken. On the weakening side, we can expect the New Zealand here to continue to weaken, the yen to continue to weaken here, and the Canadian dollar to continue to weaken here. And then also look out for this Aussie, as it looks like it's starting to turn and will come into a weakening cycle. So whilst we might have a very quiet start to the week, the volatility will certainly pick up in the latter half of the week. As usual, I hope this helps, and I wish you all the best for your trading this week.